Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. In this one, we will revisit a shot that I've shown previously and keep working on that. This is where we will start off from.
You could maybe lock off on this one to get to that next crim. Yeah, but then you might have to really go dynamically to the one after.
So today we're focusing on the first shot that hasn't been colored yet. There's no lip syncing yet, but I'll do that after the colors are done. I wanted to get the sort of general acting done for the shot first and then do the mouth movements on the layer above, so that will come later. Currently I've pretty much finished the first pass of line work, which basically covers the entire animation. But before we jump into coloring, I have one in-between frame left to make between these two frames here, where he grabs the rock hold here and crimps down on it. So I will split this frame into two and then erase the part that needs to be drawn and then start drawing this in between. But once this final frame is done, I will get on with coloring it, so that's kind of what we will focus on today. You can see in the timeline at the bottom of the screen that I have my frames stacked up one after another. The whole project is in 12 frames per second. And as you can see, some of the frames are longer than one frame. So I'm basically animating on twos and then letting a few frames linger. You might consider this quite a low frame rate with 12 FPS, but after a lot of balancing between how much time to spend and what I find manageable to make this, to make progress on this film, I think I'm happy with this actually. So for the in-between, I will have onion skin enabled so I can see the frames before and after and then find where this in-between goes. It helps a lot to rotate the canvas when I draw. It's a little bit like drawing on paper. You would move the paper around if you were drawing. To draw long and precise lines, you want the paper, or in this case the canvas, to line up with a good angle for you to draw in. So I keep rotating it a lot, and in Photoshop, if you want to do this, you can just hit the R key and that will bring up the option to do that. There's not a massive difference between the frames before and after, so that can make things a bit tricky. It's very subtle movements we're dealing with, so I want to make sure my current frame lands right between these two to not get a jittery motion. This in-between transitions his hand reaching the rock and his fingers sort of engaging and starting to pull on the small edge that's there. His face is almost the same, just a slight difference in facial expressions maybe, but its position is pretty much the same, so I kind of have to be careful when drawing that to make sure it's transition smooth between these frames. So now I have all the frames drawn and I'm happy with how he moves, so I will move on to coloring. I'm making a new video group in Photoshop for this, and I'm placing it below the drawn line work that has already been done. And then with blank frames, I match the pacing of the frames from the layer above so that I already have that stuff placed out. So it's basically like a duplicate of what's above, but with blank frames. and then I can just start coloring on each of these frames. I've dropped the opacity of the line work, so we can use that as a reference only. For each of my characters, I create a color guide that I can quickly color pick from, and I've labeled what is what on it, so there's no confusion. I find that quite handy. Now it's just a lot of time spent on drawing and cleaning this character up and putting it into color. I'm currently in the middle of moving to a new apartment here in Innsbruck. We're getting a new home with a bigger office, so I'm really looking forward to getting all that sorted. It's always exciting to move, and it'll be nice to have more space to do creative work in. Both me and my girlfriend are creating content, so it's cool to have a dedicated space for that. And now that things are a bit more back to normal with this whole corona thing, we've been spending more time outside as well, going climbing and hiking, which has been nice. Climbing is what this guy here will be doing in the film, so I'll be able to shoot some good references for that when I'm out and about. It'll be a fun little project to build all the moves for this climb that is featured in the film out of, existing things that's out there. So shooting my own reference is something I really like, and I'm looking forward to doing that. When I do coloring, I always like to paint in one frame first so I can sort of see the final result. But when tackling the other frames, I will focus on one area at a time to get through things a bit quicker. Alright, so I'll let you guys enjoy some of this painting process for a bit, and I'll join you a little bit later in the video. As you can see, this part is quite time consuming, but it's also quite brainless. I think getting the first animation pass to a good place, where I do the outlines, it takes a lot more energy out of me, because I have to design the movements. For this coloring work, I don't really have to focus as much, so I can be a bit more relaxed. Once these block colors are filled in, I draw some line work again. I only do this where I have overlap of the same colors, like where his arm overlaps his body, for example, and also to add details to the face. The face requires line work to look good. This is the style I've decided to go for my film, but you could also, of course, have no outlines or completely fill the characters with outlines. It's just a design decision, but it's good to set some rules to follow. So this is where I got to with this so far.
You could maybe lock off on this one to get to that next crim. Yeah, but then you might have to really go dynamically to the one after.
The next step will be the lip syncing, so it matches with the voice. The voice is actually just a placeholder at the moment, but I will swap that out further down the line. Comment below if you want to see some lip syncing in the next episode or in an upcoming one. Or if you have any other things you want to say, feel free to comment that too. Subscribe if you like my videos, that's always really helpful. If you want to support the channel, you can also do that over on Patreon. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.